The first cancellation came on a rainy Monday morning, couched in polite language and hollow apologies. The second arrived 3 hours later. By the end of the week, 5 clients had pulled out, each citing concerns about scheduling, financial risk, or vague professional uncertainties. They all said the same thing: it's not personal. But Isabella Raines knew better. She leaned back in her office chair, the Denver skyline glowing gray behind her, and tapped her pen against the email on her screen. Another cancellation. Another lie. Mila, her assistant, stood in the doorway, a clipboard clutched in her hands. That's the Donnelly fundraiser. They were locked in for 6 months. Isabella gave a dry smile. Until someone whispered poison into their ears. Mila's expression tightened. Your mother-in-law? Who else? The name hung in the air like a storm cloud. Miranda Hawthorne. To most of Denver's elite, Miranda was society royalty, the widow of a powerful real estate mogul, the host of glamorous charity galas, and the woman whose surname still opened doors across the city. But to Isabella, she was something else entirely. A saboteur. 8 months earlier, Isabella's husband, Daniel Hawthorne, had died in a car crash, an accident that shattered more than just her heart. From the moment the funeral ended, Miranda's claws had come out. In her mind, Isabella was the interloper, the outsider who had never been good enough. She dismissed Isabella's thriving event firm as a hobby and dismissed Isabella herself as a social climber who had married for power. The fact that Isabella had signed a prenup, refused Hawthorne family money, and built her business from scratch didn't matter. Because to Miranda, perception was everything. And if she couldn't control Isabella, she would ruin her. And she had started, quietly, ruthlessly, and effectively. I can make calls, Mila offered. We can try to reschedule, reassure people. Isabella shook her head. It won't help. Not until I cut this off at the source. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a thick manila envelope, the one she had been keeping for months, waiting for the right time to use it. On the label, in clean black letters, were 2 words. Notice of termination. Inside was a formal eviction order. The property? Miranda's home. The legendary Hawthorne estate, a Tudor-style mansion passed down through generations. It was Miranda's sanctuary. Her last badge of prestige. A symbol of everything she believed made her untouchable. And Isabella owned it. 6 months earlier, in a quiet downtown auction, the estate had been sold. Unbeknownst to Miranda, her late husband had mortgaged the mansion to cover massive personal debts, reckless real estate ventures no one else knew about. When he passed, the debt came due. The bank foreclosed quietly, unwilling to ignite a media storm. It was listed privately, through a shell holding company. And Isabella was waiting. She had made the purchase through a silent partner, no names, no flags. Miranda continued living there, paying rent to what she believed was a faceless investment firm. The lease allowed for eviction at any time, given 30 days' notice. Until now, Isabella hadn't pulled the trigger. But the sabotage changed everything. Just then, her phone buzzed. Incoming call, Miranda Hawthorne. Isabella stared at the screen, her lips curling into a smile. She answered, keeping her voice smooth. Miranda. Oh, darling, Miranda cooed, the venom laced with sugar. I just heard the most dreadful news. Clients abandoning you? Poor thing. I hope it's not something you did. I'm sure you do. I always said you needed more structure. A better team. Honestly, some people just aren't suited for business. And some people aren't suited to meddling, Isabella said, her tone sharpened. Miranda chuckled, cold, mirthless. I'm simply informing friends of the risks. If they choose to take their business elsewhere, that's not my fault. Of course not, Isabella said, gripping the envelope in her hand. Funny how invested you are in my failure. Just looking out for the family name, Miranda snapped, her polished tone slipping. Without Daniel, you're barely part of it. The call ended abruptly. Isabella stared at her phone, breath steady. Then she stood, straightened her jacket, and looked to Mila. Cancel my afternoon, she said. I need to see my lawyer. An hour later, she sat in a minimalist office across from Julian Ma, her family attorney. He flipped through the notice, nodding. The lease is structured cleanly. You can terminate with 30 days notice. Once served, it's official. Then let's do it. Julian hesitated. You're sure? Once she knows it's you, there's no going back. Isabella's jaw tightened. She's taken enough from me. She's not taking my business. He made the call. I'll have the papers delivered first thing tomorrow. Isabella stood. Make sure it's public. She wants a spectacle, let's give her one. The next morning, Isabella sat at her favorite rooftop cafe sipping espresso. The sun had just begun to crest the Denver skyline. Her phone buzzed at 9:07 a.m. then again. And again. First a text. You snake. You think you're clever? Then a voicemail. Rage. Screaming. Something about lawyers. Connections. War. Then an email, each line more desperate than the last. You think you've won. You haven't. This is a new low. You don't deserve that house. That family. You never did. Isabella forwarded the email to Julian and leaned back in her chair. Checkmate, she whispered. She waited a few more minutes before dialing the number she had saved under a single name. Ellison. Jackson Ellison was an investigative journalist for the Denver Chronicle. For the last 2 years, he had been chasing rumors of financial instability in the Hawthorne dynasty. Isabella had never commented, out of respect for Daniel, out of caution. Until now. I'm ready to talk, she said. Jackson paused. You sure? She made it personal. Now I'm making it public. She told him everything, about the foreclosure, the shell company, the interference in her business. By the end of the call, Jackson's voice had lost its usual polish. This is going to cause an earthquake. I'm counting on it. Just before noon, her phone buzzed again. A new message. Meet me. At the estate. Now. Isabella slipped her sunglasses back on, finished her coffee, and smiled. Let the showdown begin. The Hawthorne estate sat atop Cherry Hill like a crown on a queen's head, grand, intimidating, and steeped in old wealth. Its Tudor-style facade was wrapped in ivy and history, with ornamental gables and arched windows that looked down on the rest of the city as if judging it. And today, its judgment would be returned. Isabella parked just outside the wrought iron gate, taking a moment to breathe. The air was cool, sharp with autumn, and scented faintly with burning oak from a nearby chimney. She smoothed a crease in her blazer, tucked the envelope under her arm, and walked the familiar stone path up to the front steps. Miranda was waiting. As always, she was pristine, icy blonde hair in its signature twist, lips painted wine red, her navy coat pressed to perfection. She looked more like she was arriving for a museum gala than preparing for confrontation. You have some nerve, she spat before Isabella even reached the porch. You've gone too far this time. Isabella paused, glanced up at the estate behind her, and gave a slow, deliberate smile. You're standing on my property, Miranda. I'd say I'm exactly where I belong. Miranda's jaw tightened. This house has been in the Hawthorne family for 3 generations. You have no right. I had every legal right, Isabella said calmly. Your husband leveraged this estate to fund his vanity developments. He lost. The bank foreclosed. I bought it, clean, private, by the book. Miranda took a step forward, her designer heels tapping against the stone like gunshots. You bought it to humiliate me. I bought it to protect myself, Isabella replied, voice like flint. Because I knew someday you'd cross the line. She pulled the envelope from under her arm and held it out. This is your 30-day notice. Your lease is terminated. Effective immediately. Miranda's hand trembled as she took it, lips trembling with the force of her fury. You think you can kick me out of my home? You're bluffing. No, Isabella said, stepping in, quiet and close, you are. You've been bluffing for months. Pretending to still hold the power. Pretending your name protects you. But all you have left is this house. And now, it's mine. For a moment, Miranda's poise cracked. Her eyes flickered, not with rage, but something more dangerous. Fear. You can't prove I did anything to your business. Isabella didn't speak. Instead, she tapped her phone, opening the recording app, and played it loud enough for the empty driveway to hear. I simply shared my concerns with a few friends. If they chose to take their business elsewhere, well, that's hardly my fault. Isabella paused it with a slow exhale. You said that during your charity luncheon. Remember? The one where you coincidentally sat next to the Donnellys, the Canes, and the Petersons, all of whom dropped me within a week. That's circumstantial. I also have emails. And voicemails. And Mila has affidavits from former clients who say you pressured them. My lawyer has it all, filed and timestamped. What you did, Miranda? That's not gossip. That's tortious interference. Miranda froze. The word landed like a gavel. You're bluffing, she said again, but her voice wavered now. Isabella stepped back and crossed her arms. Keep saying that. Maybe you'll believe it. They stood in silence for a long moment. Leaves drifted lazily around their feet. Somewhere, a gardener clipped rose stems, unaware of the war playing out at the mansion's doorstep. What do you want? Miranda finally asked, voice low and shaking. Money? Public apology? You want to see me grovel? I want you to stop interfering with my life, Isabella said. I want you to call every client you poisoned and fix it. I want a written statement sent to my lawyer retracting every lie you spread. And I want your word that this ends here. And if I don't? Then the eviction stands, Isabella said flatly. And every paper in this city will run the headline, Society matron evicted from her own home by her daughter-in-law. The same daughter-in-law she tried to destroy. Miranda looked away. Her throat worked like she was trying to swallow something bitter. This house. It's all I have left of him. The words surprised Isabella. The venom was gone. Then don't lose it. Miranda sat slowly on the stone steps. For the first time, she looked less like a lioness and more like a widow, fragile, human, hollowed by grief she had never let show. Isabella didn't speak. She let the silence stretch between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. You know, Miranda said after a moment, her voice brittle, Daniel always said you were stronger than I gave you credit for. Isabella swallowed, hard. He saw me. You never did. I was scared, Miranda whispered. Scared that once he was gone, I'd lose everything. His name. His world. You. I didn't leave, Isabella said gently. Even when you gave me every reason to. Miranda looked up. Her eyes were wet now. And you still want me to stay? I want peace, Isabella said. Not revenge. Another silence. This one softer. What are your terms? Miranda asked, her voice small. You stay, Isabella said, as my tenant. But we're not enemies anymore. You stop the sabotage. You fix what you broke. And once a week. We have dinner. Just us. We talk. No games. Miranda blinked. Dinner? It's non-negotiable. Miranda almost smiled. Almost. Fine, she said. But I get to choose the wine. That evening, Isabella returned to her office. Mila was waiting with cautious eyes. Well? She's staying, Isabella said, settling into her chair. And she's calling the clients tomorrow. Mila's jaw dropped. You got her to back down? I didn't need her to back down, Isabella replied. I needed her to face the truth. She turned to her window, watching the last golden light fade across the city. Sometimes the only way to win wasn't through force. It was through resolve. And sometimes, the house you claimed for protection became the ground on which you built something new. The air between them remained brittle for weeks, like the silence after a thunderstorm, cleansed, but still thick with the memory of lightning. Miranda kept her word, though not without theatrical reluctance. Each morning, she made calls to clients she had previously scared away, offering half-hearted apologies cloaked in misunderstandings and overreactions. Some clients returned immediately, happy to learn that the rumors were false. Others took more convincing. But slowly, steadily, Isabella's event planning firm, Rose and Sage, began to rebuild its reputation. And so began the strangest chapter of Isabella's career. Her unlikely co-star? Miranda Hawthorne, the woman who had tried to ruin her. It began with the Garden Society Gala. Their longtime event planner had moved out of state at the last minute, and with just 6 weeks before the annual High Society affair, the committee was scrambling. Miranda, who'd spent decades chairing the gala, showed up at Isabella's office with a stiff posture and a tone that felt like she was chewing nails. I need your help, she said, practically choking on the words. Isabella arched an eyebrow. With what? The Garden Society Gala. It's collapsing. And they say you're the best. Isabella fought the smile twitching at her lips. You want me to plan the event you once said was too elegant for Instagram vendors like me? I never said. Miranda paused, sighed, and dropped the act. Yes. I did. I was wrong. Those 3 words rang in Isabella's ears like bells in a cathedral. She blinked. Say it again. I just want to savor it. Miranda gave her a tight-lipped look. Don't push it. They began meeting weekly at a cozy bistro in Uptown, neutral territory, neither too casual nor too extravagant. Isabella brought her iPad and color swatches. Miranda brought manila folders, half of which were filled with outdated, overly floral inspiration boards from 2009. Garden themes don't have to scream English dowager, Isabella said, scrolling through her designs. We could go modern, glass terrariums, organic centerpieces, projection mapping on the ceiling. Miranda wrinkled her nose. No butterflies? Isabella gave her a look. We're not planning a toddler's birthday. The banter was laced with tension, but it worked. Miranda resisted change at every step, only to eventually admit, grudgingly, that Isabella's ideas were actually quite striking. They fought over table linens, argued about floral arrangements, clashed on the dinner menu. But beneath the snips and snarks, something strange was taking root. Respect. One afternoon, after a particularly testy debate over the lighting scheme, Miranda lingered at Isabella's office door. Daniel would have loved your hydrangea installation, she said softly, eyes fixed on a photo of Isabella's late husband on the shelf. Isabella glanced up, caught off guard. He always wanted to add green walls to this building. Miranda nodded slowly. He once said you were the only person who didn't flinch when he talked about ideas. Even when they were terrible. Isabella's throat tightened. I never thought they were terrible. I did, Miranda replied dryly. Then after a beat, but I admired how you stood by him. That moment shifted something between them. For the first time, Miranda didn't look at Isabella like a threat. She looked at her like a partner in grief. The gala came and went, flawlessly. Guests raved about the transformation, a greenhouse-themed ballroom with bioluminescent touches, custom cocktails with edible flowers, and a local jazz quartet floating soft notes through the air. It was the highest fundraiser in the event's history. Photos flooded the society pages. And for the first time, Miranda gave credit where it was due. I couldn't have done it without Isabella Raines, she told the room during her closing toast. She brought life back into this event, and, perhaps, into me. The applause was stunned, and heartfelt. Even Isabella blinked twice. After the gala, things changed further. Miranda began asking Isabella's advice on things she never would have before: how to negotiate with a decorator, how to restructure the garden club's aging board, even how to use Instagram to promote events. Is this a real? She asked one morning, holding her phone like it might bite her. No, Miranda, Isabella said patiently, that's a slow-motion filter of your cat drinking champagne. Oh. Charming. And once, just once, Miranda left a lavender scone on Isabella's desk without saying a word. Isabella ate it. And didn't comment. A month later, Miranda showed up with a proposal. I want you to move your office here. To the East Wing. Isabella blinked. The mansion? Miranda cleared her throat. Yes. It's ridiculous for you to be paying rent in that shoebox downtown when this wing is empty. There's a separate entrance, more light, and enough space for your team to expand. Isabella hesitated. Why the change of heart? Miranda shrugged, adjusting her cuff. I suppose I've come to appreciate your capabilities. That was dangerously close to a compliment. Don't let it go to your head. Isabella considered the offer. She had once purchased the house as a line of defense, a shield to protect what she loved. But now? It didn't feel like a weapon anymore. It felt like a bridge. All right, she said slowly. On one condition. Miranda narrowed her eyes. Which is? No more sabotage. No games. If you have an issue, you come to me directly. Miranda nodded. Agreed. And Sunday dinners, Isabella added. Miranda blinked. What? You want us to be neighbors? Then we act like family. One meal a week. Real conversation. Miranda looked like she wanted to protest. Then she sighed. I'll bring the wine. When Isabella and her team moved into the East Wing, whispers rippled through the society circuit. The once warring widow and daughter-in-law now shared a roof, and a business address. But Isabella didn't care. She had built her company from the ground up. She had defended it from the inside out. And now, she was doing something she never thought she would. Turning an enemy into an ally. That night, as she unpacked the last box in her new office, Isabella paused to look around the space. The same walls that once loomed with judgment now welcomed her with warmth. Photos of Daniel, her team, and even a snapshot from the gala lined the shelves. A quiet knock at the door. Miranda appeared, holding a file folder and a bottle of wine. We need to talk seating charts for the animal rescue benefit, she said. And I brought a Malbec. Isabella smiled. You're learning. Don't push it. The East Wing had once been Miranda Hawthorne's private museum, unused rooms filled with antique settees, silver tea trays, and tapestries too fragile to touch. The floors gleamed, but no one walked them. The curtains matched, but no light came in. Until Isabella moved in. Within weeks, the wing was transformed. One room became a collaborative workspace filled with bright desks, corkboard vision walls, and shelves lined with color-coded binders and small potted succulents. Another was turned into a design studio, where swatches and mood boards covered the walls like a blooming mosaic. The once sterile hallway now echoed with laughter, Spotify playlists, and the scent of espresso from the in-house coffee cart that Mila insisted on bringing from their old office. At first, Miranda watched from a distance, eyebrow arched, lips tight, her morning walks through the hallway becoming more frequent, more curious. She never said anything. But she noticed everything. Do you need help organizing those menus? She asked one afternoon, peering into Isabella's office. Isabella looked up, half amused. You want to help with vegan menu planning? Miranda waved a hand. Of course not. But I know the donor chair for that fundraiser. If she doesn't see quinoa, she'll threaten to pull her pledge. Useful intelligence. I have years of it, Miranda replied coolly. I used to run this city, you know. Isabella smiled. I know. That's why you're welcome to stay in the war room. Miranda crossed the threshold, sat gracefully in the client chair, and for the first time, stayed. The strange thing about healing is that it often arrives disguised as routine. Weekly Sunday dinners became a fixture, first awkward, then tolerable, then oddly comforting. They ate in the garden when the weather allowed, sometimes in silence, sometimes reminiscing about Daniel. One evening, as golden hour bathed the estate in light, Miranda poured them both wine and stared out at the hedgerows. He always wanted to turn that fountain into a koi pond, she said. Isabella looked over. I didn't know that. He mentioned it once, then forgot, Miranda replied. But you remember the little things. You always did. Isabella nodded. I try to. He muttered. Miranda didn't say anything for a while. Then, so do you. It wasn't an apology. But it was something. Over the months, lines began to blur. The once imposing matriarch who had plotted to destroy Isabella's career now offered unsolicited client advice and floral opinions during lunch breaks. You're still using lilies in March? She once asked, scandalized. You'll trigger every allergy from here to Boulder. Duly noted, Isabella replied dryly. Anything else, Your Majesty? Yes, Miranda said, reaching for a macaron. Get real champagne next time. But beneath the banter, Isabella sensed a shift. Miranda stopped referring to your business and started saying our team. She complimented Mila in front of clients. She began introducing Isabella at events not just as her daughter-in-law, but as the woman who keeps me relevant. And it wasn't just talk. Business boomed. The Garden Gala opened doors to high-net-worth clientele. A museum exhibit launch followed. Then a National Arts Foundation tapped Isabella's firm to design their regional conference. Miranda's name, once used as a weapon against her, now opened doors instead of slamming them shut. Mila put it best during a strategy meeting one afternoon. Your enemy just became your PR department. Then came the envelope. A simple cream card with gold foil lettering. The return address, Hawthorne Trust Estate Planning Office. Isabella opened it cautiously. Inside was a revised deed. The East Wing, previously owned by the trust, had been signed over to Isabella, free and clear. It was hers, not as a tenant or a bargaining chip, but as a gift. There was no note. Just Miranda's unmistakable signature at the bottom. Isabella stared at it for a long time. She didn't know what surprised her more, the generosity or the quiet way Miranda had chosen to show it. Later that week, they found themselves in the kitchen late at night. Miranda had a rare craving for buttermilk biscuits, Daniel's favorite, and insisted on baking them from memory. Flour dusted the counters. The timer was slightly off. The kitchen smelled like nostalgia and something close to joy. "Why the deed?" Isabella asked finally. Miranda didn't meet her gaze. "Because you've earned it. And because I was wrong." Isabella waited, quiet. "I wanted to hate you," Miranda continued. "Because losing Daniel left me with nothing to blame. And you were easier." Isabella swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't take him from you." "I know," Miranda said. "But I needed someone to punish. And I chose you." The biscuits beeped. Neither moved. "I forgive you," Isabella said softly. Miranda turned then, eyes wet, not quite crying. "I don't deserve that." "It's not about deserve." They stood in silence, broken only by the ticking of the oven's cooling metal. Then Miranda reached across the counter and offered her a biscuit, warm, flaky, imperfect. "Don't get used to this," she said gruffly. "I'm not baking every week." Isabella laughed, tears slipping down her cheek. "I'll take what I can get." 2 weeks later, a glossy magazine hit the stands. On the cover, Isabella and Miranda, posed in front of the restored estate gardens, surrounded by their team. Power. Partnership. Peace, inside the new era of Hawthorne House. Inside, the article chronicled their story, not as rivals, but as women who rebuilt more than just reputations. They had rewritten the rules. They had redefined family. And they had done it together. One evening, after a particularly long planning session, Isabella sat alone in the East Wing, her desk bathed in lamplight. On her shelf sat a new photo, Miranda and Daniel, arms looped around each other, smiling at a charity gala long before the chaos. Next to it, a newer photo, Isabella and Miranda at the garden gala, holding flutes of champagne, half smiling, half winking at the camera like they'd just pulled off something unimaginable. And they had. Because this house was never just a house. It was a battleground. A prison. A fortress. And now? It was a home. The morning was quiet, the kind of gentle calm that wrapped itself around the mansion like a warm shawl. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the East Wing office, casting golden lines across Isabella's desk. She stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the garden slowly come alive as the first staffers of Rose and Sage arrived, waving to the groundskeeper and rolling in their planners and laptops. A year ago, the mansion had been a battlefield. Now, it was her headquarters. Her peace. Her story. And Miranda Hawthorne was no longer the villain. She was complicated. Sharp-edged. Proud. But also changed. And, in some strange twist of fate, part of the reason Isabella's company had not only survived but thrived. The business numbers didn't lie. Revenue was up 30%. Client retention had hit an all-time high. The firm had expanded its service list to include nonprofit consulting and legacy event management, building on Miranda's extensive network. Even Forbes Local had named Rose and Sage one of Denver's top women-led firms to watch. But the win Isabella cherished most wasn't printed on any spreadsheet. It was the note sitting neatly on her desk that morning. A cream-colored envelope, unsealed. She recognized Miranda's handwriting instantly, sharp, upright cursive, elegant and assertive. Inside was a single note. Olivia. The garden will need replanting this spring. Perhaps a joint project? I hear your interns are quite the artists. Might be nice to let them leave their mark. Oh, and you left your grandmother's brooch on the dining table again. I've had it cleaned. It's waiting for you in the foyer. Isabella smiled, running a thumb across the paper. A small gesture. No grand speeches. "No, I'm proud of you." But this was how Miranda gave praise. Subtle. Earned. Undeniable. Later that day, she found the brooch in a velvet box by the front entrance. The one Miranda had once claimed was tacky costume jewelry. Now, polished and gleaming, it sparkled like a declaration. She pinned it to her jacket before heading out to her weekly staff strategy meeting. On the way, she passed Miranda in the hallway. "Nice brooch," Miranda said without stopping. "Thanks. You have excellent taste," Isabella replied smoothly. "Always have," Miranda called over her shoulder. Isabella chuckled to herself. Always one step away from a compliment, she thought. And yet, always closer than before. The strategy meeting wrapped with laughs and light applause. Mila handed Isabella a tablet with the updated annual forecast. "Next year looks even stronger," she said. "And, get this, the Planning Commission wants you to speak at the Civic Women in Leadership Luncheon." Isabella raised an eyebrow. "The same commission that once told me I lacked gravitas?" Mila grinned. "Apparently, gravitas looks better when you're bringing in millions and running an empire from a historical landmark." Isabella laughed. "I'll take it." Before she could sit back down, her phone buzzed. A message from Miranda. "Dinner in the garden? The peonies are blooming. Thought it might be a good place for a toast." That evening, the garden was bathed in twilight. The old fountain gurgled softly, surrounded now not by carefully trimmed formality, but by a mix of new and old, wildflowers planted by interns, potted herbs from the kitchen staff, a repurposed archway that doubled as a selfie spot for charity galas. Isabella arrived to find Miranda already seated at the wrought iron table, sipping her usual, a chilled glass of white wine. Next to her sat a second glass, waiting. "You're punctual," Miranda said without looking up. "Years of being underestimated will do that," Isabella replied, taking her seat. Miranda smirked. "Touché." They clinked glasses lightly. No speeches. Just a quiet toast to something unspoken, peace earned, not given. "I had a dream about Daniel last night," Miranda said, unexpectedly. "He was in the garden. Said it looked different, but he liked it." Isabella didn't speak. She let the ache of the memory settle. "I think he'd be proud of this," Miranda continued, gesturing to the garden, the mansion, the laughter echoing faintly from the east wing windows. "I hope so," Isabella said quietly. "You built something real," Miranda said. "I tried to tear it down. I regret that." Isabella looked at her, startled by the honesty. Miranda met her gaze without flinching. "You were never a gold digger," she said. "I just couldn't see you past my grief." "I know," Isabella said. "And I wasn't perfect either. I held a grudge. I planned my revenge. And instead," Miranda said, swirling her glass, "you gave me grace." They sat in silence for a while. Then Miranda asked, "Do you think you'll ever leave? Leave the house?" Miranda nodded. "You've rebuilt. Maybe you don't need the symbolism anymore." Isabella thought about it. About the irony of living in the mansion that was once used to push her away. About how it had become not just a workplace, but a refuge. "No," she said finally. "Because it's not about needing it. It's about choosing it. I choose to stay. Not to win. But to root something new in the soil of something old." Miranda looked at her for a long time. Then, quietly, "You sound like him when you talk like that." A week later, Isabella received a letter. It wasn't from a client or a vendor. It was from a teenage girl named Kayla, who had interned at Rose and Sage that summer. It read: "Ms. Raines. Thank you for showing me that women can lead with kindness and still be strong. That power isn't about being feared, it's about being respected. I didn't know I wanted to be like you until I watched how you ran that office, how you handled conflict, how you carried yourself with calm. Someday, I want to build something too. Thank you for making me believe I could. Kayla B." Isabella folded the letter, her throat tight. She placed it beside the brooch and Miranda's note, her small box of reminders. Not of revenge, but of transformation. As the days passed, the mansion settled into its new rhythm. Clients came and went. Dinners were shared. Sunday meetings turned into impromptu movie nights. Isabella still rolled her eyes at Miranda's obsession with antique upholstery. Miranda still scoffed at Isabella's modern branding campaigns. But they were building something, together. Something neither of them could have built alone. Not despite their history. But because of it. And so the house once used as a weapon became a sanctuary. The woman once seen as an enemy became an unlikely mentor. And the business once teetering on the brink now stood as a symbol of resilience, grace, and hard-won trust. Because sometimes the greatest victories don't come from defeating those who stand against us. Sometimes, the real win comes from rewriting the story, together.